This has turned into quite a night, and one in which you definitely are given the opportunity to have a little bit of pause. I just finished coding a lady for the past 50 minutes, and unfortunately she didn't make it. And this is a time when it's hard. A lot of people ask me all the time what it's like from an emotional standpoint to kind of deal with losing patients and seeing people kind of die before your very eyes. And to be completely honest, I really don't know how I process it. Unfortunately, I think I just have gotten not used to it, because you never get used to it, but you just have to develop this way of being able to compartmentalize things and recognize tragedy and be reminded that this was somebody's family member, and unfortunately they're no longer here, and you have to figure out a way to stay sane, because as you can see, I'm still on call and I still have to be good in the event that something else happens. Because of all of the things that are going on, I think I alluded to this in another video, that because of the COVID pandemic and whatnot, we're spending a lot more time in the ICU, and unfortunately, in the ICU, a lot of people are very, very sick, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't make it. But we also cover what we call codes, and essentially, what codes are is when you have a patient who is having a heart rhythm to the point where they basically have a heart rhythm or something to that nature that is not compatible with life, and they are what we call hemodynamically unstable. So unfortunately, this particular person had that and was having a heart attack, and unfortunately, despite our best efforts, didn't make it. It's really something to have to see the emotional toll that something like that would take on somebody's family. But unfortunately, it happens. You just have to be thankful for the time. It makes me, seeing this sort of thing really makes me thankful for the things that I have in my own life and the people that are in my life, for my family, and for the opportunities. And it's one of those things where it makes you want to live even better, makes you want to love even harder, makes you really want to hold on to the people that are important to you. So blessings to that patient's family. But unfortunately, now I have to go and write a bunch of notes, because one of the other parts of being a doctor is also ensuring that you provide an adequate record of what happened. So now I have to sit at a computer and I have to document everything that happened, because that is necessary to ensure that the records are complete. So I'm going to go do that, and I will come back and talk with you guys in a bit. So it's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sitting here after a very, how can I say, a very eventful evening. I am covering the ICU, but unfortunately, there was a need for me to help my colleagues in the operating room with a person who had a very unfortunate GI bleed, which most people in anesthesia sort of describe anesthesia as times of boredom punctuated by moments of sheer terror. If you could imagine seeing someone vomiting blood to the point of looking like a murder scene, you can imagine how, if you haven't been trained appropriately to be able to handle that type of a sight, that you would completely lose your shit. But fortunately for us, we are trained to be able to sort of divorce our emotions from what's actually happening, so that we can be completely functional and do what we can for the patient. And we all sprung into action. We worked seamlessly as a team, so much so that we didn't even have to talk to each other. We didn't even have to say much because we sort of knew what was happening, and we worked in sync. That was a good feeling. That was a really good feeling. We all worked very well together. Nobody was rude. It was just a synchronized machine. So I feel pretty good about that, and we were able to get that person to a more highly acute hospital, which is great for them. You know, sometimes people ask me, like, what is it like to run a code? Like, during an emergency situation, is it just like Grey's Anatomy? Is it like watching Scrubs? Is it like watching these medical shows? And, you know, in a certain way it kind of is, but it's actually more surreal than not, I would say. It's way more real, especially when you have somebody who was alive and then they're dying before your very eyes. And that's sort of what happened this evening with someone I was taking care of. And when the code happens, you just have to spring into action. And I'd say the good thing about this particular experience with this code is that we really all worked together as a great interdisciplinary team. On the code team, you have a physician who's a leader. Sometimes you have nurses and other ancillary staff who do chest compressions on the patient. You have nurses who are recording information. You have folks who are drawing up medications. And you really have to communicate really well. It's a great opportunity to really see what you're made of in terms of leading a team. And I had to, unfortunately, lead that code. And I feel like it went very well in terms of just being able to communicate and being able to work together as a team. But unfortunately for our patient, the outcome was not what we had hoped for. And unfortunately, I don't know how I feel about that. Despite your best efforts, it's sort of like you have to be settled in the fact that when God wants you, He wants you. And there's nothing that nobody can do about that. I had to accept that a long time ago. So now I have to go and do the part of this job that is the hardest, and that's the paperwork. I'll come back and talk with you guys in a little bit. All right. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I've been on call all night. I am dog tired. They have me standing in this patient room. I know it looks like I'm a patient in the bed. Let me show you this. All right, let me see if I can turn the camera around. Oh, it won't let me turn the camera around. But basically, you look around here, I am in a room on the pediatric floor. Remember, I keep talking about this whole coronavirus thing because of the onslaught of patients that have happened. They have more of us on call than they have call rooms. And if you could imagine, that creates quite a problem. So I am in a nice big room. I have my own bathroom. It's pretty nice, but considering the night that I've had, I'm over it. But, you know, it's funny, you know, I guess in thinking about it, after a while in this business, you really get used to being tired all the time. And you get used to operating at your highest capacity when you have the least amount left in the tank. But either way, I'm going to lay it down. I get off at 7. I am going to try to lay down, and I'll get with you guys later. Good morning. It is currently about 6:45 in the morning, and I've slept all of about an hour and 30 minutes, and of course I am tired. But now what I have to do is at about 7 o'clock we sign out to one another, which means that my colleague who's covering the daytime will come on. I will explain sort of the goings on of what happened last night, any sort of pertinent things that he needs to be aware of, I hand off the code pager, and then I am free, and I'll live to fight another day. But first, I gotta get some sleep today. So anyway, let's go. One of the sobering things about being on call is that literally anything can come through the door and anything can happen. So you kind of have to brace yourself for the possibility that you could be awake the entire time, and then be happy that sometimes you're able to sleep. But for the most part, you really have to just take it all in stride. Last night was an example of a time when you're pretty much awake the whole time. But for whatever reason, we've gotten all used to being awake as much. So, all right. And just like that, we bask in the sunshine. And we're thankful to God that we made it through another call.